Hello and welcome to another evening yap session with your boy, Bev. I want to talk today about just some things that I've learned on tackling perfectionism as a habitual perfectionist. I can only speak for myself, but I feel like the core of perfectionism for me is about feeling capable and feeling understood, I guess. The idea of putting something out that you know isn't to your fullest of capabilities is kind of scary. You don't want people to look at your work that you view as suboptimal and see that as, oh, this guy's just not that skilled. It's like a fear of being underestimated or that your true skills aren't being represented correctly through your work. I don't know why I'm saying you. It's me. I'm talking from my experience.
Are you still recording?
I just started.
Can I be in it?
Yeah.
Really?
If you want to.
Yeah. Do I need a microphone?
I don't have two of these. Or wait, I do have two of these. I don't know where the other one is.
What up, bitch?
The topic of the day is on perfectionism.
I gotta use this time wisely because he ain't here. Evan hits me. Yeah, I feel like passion projects, No, fuck. What's that expression, dipping your toes in, every type or every piece of pie. Have a finger in every pie. Pretty much what I'm saying is you should have a finger in every pie. But that's a saying.
This is Michael, my roommate, fellow filmmaker. Say hi.
Hey,
Skateboarding
day,
pro.
No. On top of filmmaker, will one day also be a bread maker.
A bread maker?
But like
money or?
No, like no money, like yeast.
Oh, you're gonna have a bakery.
Just yeast.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Yeah. What I was starting on was kind of talking about like the root of perfectionism in being like, you don't want to put out anything that you feel is suboptimal. And I don't know if you resonate with this, but I was just talking on my experience of perfectionism is like, you don't want to put anything out that you feel like isn't your best because other people will interpret that as your best. And so there's like this fear of, if I put out anything, people are going to assume that's all I can do. And that makes it scary to do anything. And that's like a big drive of perfectionism for me, is just like in managing other people's expectations of me, I guess. And so what I was getting to with that is like having like one long side project that you are putting your all into that doesn't require any specific release dates or whatever, that you can work on for as long as you like. Mm-hmm. And then like your day-to-day creative whatever you're doing in the moment doesn't matter as much if you've got a long-term project. But I don't know if your motive behind perfectionist tendencies is the same.
I mean, yeah, my just idea, I think like everyone's idea of a perfect project at first, like early on into the creative process, is probably the most toxic idea you have, because it's just like you get whatever the creative ideas or this creative project you come up with, whether it's a board game or a painting or a movie you want to make, and you have like a really innocent idea, you come up with it, but then you start to think like it has to look like this, and in order for it to look like this, I have to get here.
Yeah, it's easy to daydream in the idea phase.
And then you almost just, like I said, like I use that word toxic because it's just like it's such an early idea that you only hold that first like rough draft in your head as the idea of perfection. And I also think though, like as much as I say like that's a toxic thing, I think that's a necessary thing. Like I think all of our projects like so early on, and like we go back and talk about like the early days, like even though we are in the early days.
Like you have to have a strong imagination to have some drive, but then it's scary when reality meets the imagination, and you're like, this isn't totally what I wanted it to be.
And I mean, Evans is really my first short film that I put on the internet. You were a big part of, you were in it and produced it, but I remember that was like, I had a pattern of like kind of uploading short films for the past like 3 or 2.5 years prior to it. But and these films were like 2.5 minutes, but I spent like 364 days working on this 2 minutes because I was like, oh, this is like getting it to what I thought was like the perfection. And then within 3 months after, I would have like these horrible thoughts of like, oh, like I hyped up that this is perfection so much that people think this is my idea of perfection. And if they don't agree, then they've fallen off. Like they've like lost interest in me.
Yeah.
So I felt like with every film I was putting out, I was just like, people were just getting off the train more and more. But
I
then
think
that thought kind of drove me of like, oh, wait, like if no one's on my train, then I can do whatever the hell I want.
Exactly. That's where I was going to go with that. Is like, you don't have to publicize and hype up everything because I think here's a perfectionism management technique is don't try to get everybody on the same level of hype that you're on about your project.
Yeah.
Just work on it in private and drop it. Like you can do a little bit of promo, but like if you're promoting it as it is in your head, it's not going to live up to that. And that's just reality. And so it's like, don't worry so much about, I mean, that's so easy to say, don't worry about what other people are thinking, but like, don't overhype based on your imagination. Because, you know, beating people's expectations in your own mind rather than falling under them is always a better spot to be in. Yeah.
I think too, like, you know, there's so much of that, like that perfectionism chase that you like, you know, you think you release something perfect and then you're like, that was not at all perfect. And you do this cycle, this like almost just like back and forth cycle that eventually it just like kind of filters out the ideas of like your standards of perfection just slowly go down, but not in a bad way. Like you're like dropping your standards, but you're like the reality of perfection. And once that like kind of like you shed that off, and then it's easier for you to feel like as long as you have a personal satisfaction with the project.
There's like a skill curve
that is perfection.
Of like at the beginning of learning how to do something, your expectations for yourself are way too high. And as you learn and get better at it, your expectations actually drop because you become more realistic. And so like, that's just part of the game is like learning to dose your expectations. And this whole thing kind of sounds like don't think so highly of yourself, but that's not what we're saying.
No, I would say like even in this past year, I've shed another, you know, layer of that like expectation versus perfection. And like you know, you and I put out an award-winning short film and like I rode that high and I was so confident that like I kind of in my head had put myself at like, okay, I'm on this tier now, which means automatically the next one will be at a tier above and so on. Like I'm like, oh, I'm on the ladder now. Like, you know, I worked to get on like this portion of the ladder. Now I'm just like, I'm obviously only going to go up. And then like 3 months passed and I thought I had the idea of like what, you know, I thought I had the next 5 that I had already planned 5 steps ahead, but I personally had actually like fallen like 10 steps back. But then I was like, oh, like I'm actually in an even better flow state because of this, because it's just like, oh, like you have to like, you almost have to acknowledge like when the slate is wiped clean, you know, like every time you finish a painting or you know, upload something or, you know, finish making a sweater, when you start the next one, like there is no expectation of the next based on the last. It's always a clean slate, you know, like I feel like so many people are afraid of like the experimental side of things too. And that's what I was kind of trying to get at of like in my rough cold open of like having a finger in every pie is like, that took me so long of like, I was like most people, like when you're very young and you want to be a filmmaker, you just only want to identify as that of like, I am a filmmaker and I'm only going to be a filmmaker. But then once I started to bring in other things of like, I started pursuing like film photography for like 3 years now, like that, like,
and those skills transfer too. And it's just like, there's no reason I guess all of this boils down to, there's no reason to like put yourself in one pocket at the very beginning of like trying something because you're just limiting yourself and gassing up your own expectations. And it's better to, well, I try not to say it's better like all around, but in a lot of cases it can be better to segment your creative energies off to different things so that you're not like putting your entire value into the perceived value of one project.
Yeah, I feel like a year ago, like, you know, you're gonna be so mad, but I'm gonna keep bringing up the fingers in pies because I just think it's pretty funny now. But you know, one of the pies last year I tried dipping my finger in was daily YouTube uploads. Like I did a whole unlisted breakfast with Pat.
The daily
I
October.
did the breakfast thing. That was my thing. It was just you and I that established that we were gonna do it. And that was like one of the pies I was like dipping my fingers into, and I learned so quickly like
that wasn't you.
This was not my favorite pie. This was not it at all. But something that I had learned from that was one of the episodes we did together, like over FaceTime, like and recorded, was like you pretty much saying like, well, you were telling me like, you know, it's good to go get inspired by life rather than just only trying to pull inspiration in whatever like medium or lane you're trying to, you know, improve in. Like if you want to improve in whatever lane you're like, you know, going towards, it's honestly easier to get inspired in the outside lanes and like bring whatever you learn into that lane and then go forward. Yeah.
There's time to fully dive into one specific thing that you're the best at when you're way older in the middle of your career and doing, you know, and even then, I don't know, we can't speak on that because we're 24.
Yeah.
It's like, I know plenty of people that I respect and look up to that have changed their careers every 5-10 years. And like, that's just, maybe that's what I'll do. I don't know. Maybe I'll quit YouTube after 5 years and go be the best plumber I can be in 5 years. Or so, like, I don't know. It's just, there's no sense in I guess this whole thing is just like separating your expectations of yourself and your imagination, your perfectionist tendencies from what people actually perceive. Because the truth is, nobody cares that much, and you can get away with whatever you want to do. So don't let yourself get paralyzed by the pressure of how cool your imagination is as a creative.
Just know you're going to fail, and then you're going to fail again. You're going to keep failing, and then you might succeed, and then you're going to fail again.
But the failures don't count as long as you're progressing on the same thing.
And one success is better than no success.
Word. Here's my closing line: is a series of failures followed by one success is just one long success. All right.
That's true.
That's all for today, folks. Thank you.
For your
I'll see you tomorrow with a camera video. Been a while. All right, bye.